Well, folks, this is really a weird one, and I don't know if there's a good explanation for it. But where do I even start? I guess for a bit of context, it would help to say that I was rolling dice and pressing the luck, one of my favorite pastimes, but the goal here was to do a double feature on this fishy weekend, and I just wrapped up an incredible day with my new buddy Matt, and I wanted to hit this fun canyon on my way home. But that involved some sketchy camping. Now, diving right into camp chores, I got myself all prepped for my front seat penthouse and everything streamlined for the following morning. With tired eyes, I got everything put away as best I could and battened down all the hatches. That sunset, it was burning slow in that New Mexico sky, and it was really nice to see that the days were getting longer. Well, the night birds are singing and the sun is a setting. That was a beautiful, beautiful sunset. And yeah, all the truck chores are done. I'm clean. Got my rig all ready to go for tomorrow. The batteries are charging. And yeah, fingers crossed we don't get robbed in the middle of the night because I'm on some very, very sketchy BLM land. Not advisable, but whatever works. So yeah, let's wrap this up and I'll see you tomorrow. I think the worst part about this is that I didn't hear or see anything. Waking up with frost in the windshield, I took a little bit of extra time exiting the dream world while I waited for that sun to rise. And to some of you out there, this may seem extremely silly, but when I started gearing up, I found my water bucket had been completely flipped over. Now, here's some footage from the previous evening, and it was clearly right side up. So extremely confused and slightly spooked, I got suited up and tried my best to spot any tracks in the sand or in the dirt near me. And for those of you out there who are front seat freaks like myself, you know that rest in the truck, it is subpar. Lots of tossing, lots of turning, and any sound or light is enough to make you stir. So I have no clue how someone or something could have flipped over this awkward bucket without waking me up. And I guess I should feel lucky that nothing was left in the bucket, or heaven forbid, they had done something to the truck. So, trying to shake off the goosebumps and the feeling of being watched, it was time to execute on the plans that brought me to the sketchy BLM land. And with spring in full force here in New Mexico, I had every expectation that water in this river, it was going to be higher and murkier, but still fishable. Most everything else would have been blown out or still thawing, so I rolled the dice on this, thinking it would be my best option. And so, outside of the Rio Grande, I don't do a whole lot of repeat adventures, so slithering through these boulders and maneuvering through the pines, I had a feeling that this was going to be a treat. I visited this river late last fall, and I knew I needed to use every single ounce of knowledge to apply to this adventure, because yeah, we were working with different conditions for sure. By no means am I saying I have a fear of water, but I definitely have a healthy respect for it. Be sure to measure every single step if you do decide to brave higher waters during these spring months, because it sure does slow you down. But eventually we made it to the first run. I remember catching fish, and we got to work with that double nymph setup. It took a few passes to get dialed, but I was somewhat shocked to see we got into fish so quick, especially on the very first run of the day. This buttery beauty brown shimmered in the dim morning light and made the gamble more than worth it. Well, good morning from a beautiful box canyon. As you can kind of see and hear, the water is high, but the skunk is off. We managed to get on our first fish, and I kind of figured it'd be a little bit murkier, maybe a little bit higher. Snow melt, spring, that's the recipe. So I decided to go with a more aggressive approach. I don't know what exactly the name of this fly is. A buddy of mine tied it up for me, so you know who you are. Shout out to you. We're already putting it to good use, so that's really cool. And yeah, just gonna try and keep our fingers crossed, stay out of the fast water, and keep moving up the stream, so let's go. This might be shocking to some of you out there, but the Midwest, it doesn't have a whole lot of box canyons, so it wasn't until I actually moved to New Mexico that I was able to experience these cool watersheds. Gaining ground, it is so difficult, and it seems like everything living down there wants to sting or poke you. And the rugged nature of isolated canyons like this one, they pull me in like a siren song and push me upstream. And traversing, it's not easy. This sort of topography, it is downright dangerous, but I suppose that's why the fishing is usually better in places that are harder to get to.
There we go, that's number 2. Now, since I've fished this canyon before, I'm skipping a lot of water. The hike in and the hike out is super rough, so having 2 rods rigged up isn't really feasible when you're walking through the willows. What I've done is I've broken everything down and hiked to the productive pools. So, like our first one and now our second one here. But one thing I forgot to do as I'm rigging up my rods, I forgot to release my net, and yeah, we could have lost that fish. That was dumb. You always gotta be ready for a fish, so yeah, it's sweet. Changed up my fly, that's what we got him on, and yeah, hopefully we can keep this trend going. Let's get back in there.
Alright, spoiler alert in advance folks, but we catch a fish on this next cast, and the reason I say that is because I want you to pay attention to my New Zealand strike indicator. It stays afloat the entire time, but I still set the hook. This response, it's almost muscle memory anymore, but it takes a while to develop. I could tell that my rig was no longer moving with the drift, and it came to a strange stop. This happens more often than you think, and hook sets are free, so don't hesitate. If you see your indicator doing something funny, just set that hook, folks.
Okie doke, he is back safe and sound, and I know some of you out there might not like my ramblings. I get excited sometimes, I understand, but this is something important. This is really something everyone should key in on. When the seasons are changing, like winter to spring, the water's gonna be higher, be it from snowmelt or rain, runoff, whatever it might be. So we anglers need to keep this in mind, that the fish in the river we know aren't exactly gonna be in the same spot every time. Those 2 fish were caught way back in the pool. Usually, if it was normal conditions, they'd be lining that rock wall right there where the current plunges in, but right now, the current's way too swift. It wouldn't be economical for them to sit there. They'd lose way too much energy. So they're pulled back a bit, and yeah, that's where we're finding them. So sorry for the rambles. Let's get back to the fishing and yeah, see if we can pull a few more out.
If you ever find yourself in the box, do your best to think outside of it. This is the kind of water where you really have to get creative if you want to fish it effectively. And of course, understand your physical limitations if you do decide to fish something like this, especially if you sit in a boat for a living. But I don't hesitate to climb a few boulders just to change my vantage point and drift angle. And I suppose it should be noted, even when you put all that effort in, it doesn't always mean you're going to catch that fish. So with this second pool fished out, it was time to pack up and continue upstream. I will say, dealing with the higher water was probably the most difficult part of my day. River crossings during my first trip here, they were somewhat touch and go, even with crystal clear conditions and lower water. So having to blindly fight the faster water was quite unsettling at times, and this is the kind of water where waiting staff would actually come in handy. And I know I used to scoff at any sort of staff, but for the past few years, I use my tripod as a pseudo waiting staff, and it has saved my hide more times than I can count. So maybe consider it. Well, with the sun now high in the sky, my boulder-strewn staircase scramble was just about to reach its stopping point. Peering over the last cluster of thorn bushes, I could see my favorite pool in this entire box. I knew there were more than a few fish here, so I took my time and shed some layers to get a bit more comfortable. And the first fish came towards the back of the pool on the right side, right after this nice boulder. I'm sure this fish was seeking relief while at the same time taking advantage of the conveyor belt of new food coming down the river. Regardless, this pretty little brown was much appreciated and swam back strong. After regrouping for a bit, I was able to get on another quick fish on the opposite side of the pool this time. Getting this fish netted, there was something about it that just really caught my eye. It had so many spots running all up and down its body, and it was so much different than any of the other browns I'd caught out of this canyon. And I think that's such a cool point of a river like this, where you can go every new bend, every new run, and you can catch different fish, and each one kind of has their own signature. But as our last fish slithered away, I was happy that I decided to tie on a more aggressive nymph with a much bigger profile. They seem to love it in this high water.
Well, it is right at noon, and it might be a little weird for me to say this, but yeah, I think it's time to head back. We got some fish out of here. I'm really happy with the fish we got today, but it sucks because I know there's bigger fish and more fish, in this hole alone. But this was never really meant to be a full day trip. I just kind of want to come out here, see the scenery, see what's up, and yeah, get acquainted with some old friends. But I think it's important to note, kind of like what I was talking about earlier, I know my ramblings can get exhausting, but this is important. So right now, it's really warm. It's probably 70s. We're talking tank top season. But right now, it's nice here. Way upstream, there's still snow on the mountaintops. So I personally can't tell how fast the water's rising, if it's rising, and it's one of those things that you can't really tell right away, but once the water gets to whipping and all of a sudden it's 3, 4 o'clock, you're like, holy cow, I can't cross where I crossed before. You put yourself in a pickle and it's just not necessary, especially for just a couple fish. So yeah, it's time to turn around, get this dog and pony show going, so let's go.
As I got everything broken down and cleaned up the area a bit, I couldn't help but reflect on how lucky I was. Getting to see multiple seasons on a body of water is such a privilege. Now, applying that to a harsh place like this box canyon, it's just that much more. I really feel like I was able to see two extreme sides of this watershed that many other folks haven't. In the fall, the water is super low and crystal clear. Maneuvering, it was still pretty tough with all the ice and just the boulders in general, but by no means was it impossible. Now, in today's adventure, the water was higher, faster, and stained up. Crossing the river now meant having to take extreme care and fortitude as to not be swept away. And I guess I should say, catching fish on both of these outings, that was simply the cherry on top. Without a doubt, spring is here in New Mexico, and I can't wait to see what else the Southwest Spring has in store.
Well, if you were seeing this, that means our adventure is over. And as always, Broken Record Mike here. Thank you so much. Seriously, the more you guys like and comment, subscribe from these videos, it helps this weird algorithm thing. I don't quite understand it, but it seems to help the channel grow, and it's growing like a weed, which is crazy. And I have, again, you guys to thank for that. But before I jump out of this canyon, quick PSA, hold. You see that big bag of trash? I pulled that out of this one section, and this is a remote section. Folks, take a bag, grab some trash, make the streams better than when you came in. We need to be stewards of our land, and it doesn't take, what, 2 seconds to pick up a can? Come on. But I'll get off my soapbox now and just leave you with this. Wherever you are, be it in a pretty nasty box canyon or in your backyard, I sure hope you're keeping those feet in the water. And until next time, tight lines.